Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone. My name is Wan Nur Bisyarah binti Syamsudin, and today we are going to learn about comparatives and superlatives. Let's go into the lesson now. So, what are comparatives? Comparatives are used to compare between two objects, A and B. Meanwhile, superlatives are used to compare differences between three or more things or to show the highest value of something. So, do you guys get the concept of comparatives and superlatives? To help you guys gain more understanding about comparatives and superlatives, let me give you an example. For example, let's have an animal. Okay, for example, we have a cat. We can say that the cat is big. However, if we are going to compare between two animals, let's say cat and cow, then we are going to say that the cow is bigger than the cat, because we are comparing the size of the animals. However, if we add another animals, so for example, an elephant, then we are going to say that the elephant is the biggest animal to compare with cat and also cow. Now that we know what is the function of comparative and superlative, let's move on so that we can see how can we construct comparatives and superlatives. There are two forms, regular and irregular, but right now I am going through the regular form first. Now that we know what is the function of comparative and superlative, let's move on so that we can see how can we construct comparatives and superlatives. There are two forms, regular and irregular, but right now I am going through the regular form first. Let's look into one-syllable adjective. To form comparative for one-syllable adjective, we can add er for the comparatives and an est for the superlative. For example, small, smaller, the smallest. However, if the adjective ended with a consonant plus vowel plus consonant spelling, the final consonant must be doubled before we can add the er or est part. For example, here, big. We can see that B is consonant, I is vowel, and G is consonant. So we have to double the last consonant, which is G, before adding er or est. For example, here, big. Then we double the G, bigger, the biggest. For two-syllable adjective, comparatives can be formed either by adding er or by preceding the adjective with more, meaning that we added more before the adjective. Meanwhile, superlatives can be formed either by adding est or by preceding the adjective with most. Let's see the example here. Here we have simple. So for the comparative, we can have simpler or more simple. For the superlative, we can have the simplest or most simple. But there is another rule. Two-syllable adjective which end with consonant y nearly always form as comparatives, and superlative with ier and iest. For adjectives ending in y, change the y to I before adding the ending. For example, here, heavy. Heavy before we can make the comparative form, we have to change the Y to I before adding the ER. Heavy will become heavier. And then for the superlatives, we will have heaviest, the heaviest. If you are not sure whether a two-syllable adjective can take ER or EST form or more or most form, play it safe and use more and most instead. But two-syllable adjectives ending with full, less, ing, ed or ous always form their comparatives and superlatives with more and most. For example, here we have boring. We cannot say boringer, boringest. Instead, we say boring, more boring, the most boring. It's also the same for the word useful. We cannot say usefuler, the usefulest for comparative and superlative, but we say useful, more useful, the most useful. For adjective ending with le, less, we can have careless. And the comparative and superlative will be more careless, the most careless. For adjective ending with ed, we can have excited. And the comparative and superlative will be more excited, the most excited. And the last one for ous ending, we can have nervous, the word nervous. And the comparative and superlative will be nervous, more nervous, the most nervous. Now, let's see for adjective with 3 or more syllables. We can form the comparative for adjectives with 3 or more syllables by putting more in front of the adjectives, and the superlative by putting most in front of the adjective. Can you think some of the adjectives with 3 and more syllables? Let's look into some of the example given. Here we have the word beautiful. How many syllables do beautiful have? Beautiful. So that is 3 syllables. To form the comparative, we have to add more. So it will be more beautiful. And for superlative, we have to add most before the adjective. So it's going to be the most beautiful. Let's see another example. The next adjective here is comfortable. Comfortable, comfortable. So that is 4 syllables. How do we form comparative for 3 and more syllables? Yes, that's correct. We have to add more in front of the adjective. So it will be the comparative for the word comfortable will be more comfortable. What about superlative? For superlative, it is the same case. We have to add the most before the adjective. So the superlative for the word comfortable here will be the most comfortable. If I use it in a sentence, let's see the example in a sentence context. So let's say we have the sentence, the blue sofa looks comfortable. To use comparative, we have to add another object so that we can compare the differences between object A and object B. So, for example here, we can say that the blue sofa looks more comfortable than the green sofa. And if you all remember, to use superlative, we have to compare between 3 or more objects. So here we can say that the bed look the most comfortable. So that's it for the regular form. Now we can move on to the next one, which is the irregular form of comparatives and superlatives. So irregular form mean that there is no specific pattern to construct comparative and superlatives. Let's look into the example given here. So here we have the adjective bad. The comparative cannot be better, or superlative the baddest. No, the comparative for bad is worse, while the superlative is the worst. It's also the same for adjective good. The comparative and superlative cannot be gooder or the goodest. It will be good, better, the best. Next, for the adjective little, the comparative is less and the superlative is the least. We also have the adjective many. The comparative form for many is more and the superlative form is the most. Last but not least, we also have the adjective far. The comparative form for far is further and the superlative form for far is the furthest. However, we also can use farther and the farthest. So, from the example given, we can see that they do not follow the typical rules to form comparative, which is adding er at the end or adding more before the adjective. Or for superlative, the typical rules will be adding est at the end of the adjective or adding most before the adjective. Next, let's see how we can form question using comparatives and superlatives. For comparative, there are two ways to form question. The first one is or are plus the first subject plus the comparative adjective plus then and plus the second subject. Let's see the example. So the first one is a horse faster than a tiger? And the next example is, are mountains more beautiful than beaches? So let's see how to the second way to form question for comparative. So the second way is question form plus is or are plus comparative adjective plus the first subject plus or and plus the second subject. So example of question word is who, which, or what. Example of question word is which, who, or what. For example, which is better, English or math. Or the second example is who is more responsible, your sister or your brother. If you noticed, because we are forming question using comparative, we have to have two subjects. Like in the first example, is a horse faster than a tiger? The subjects we have here is two, which are horse and tiger. What about superlative? How can we form question using superlative? Well, for superlative, we begin with question words like who, which, or what, followed by superlative adjective and the subject. For example, what is the biggest animal on earth? And the second example is what is the most interesting book you have ever read? So, also don't forget to add question mark at the end of the sentence, as it is an interrogative sentence. I hope everyone can understand how we can form question using both comparative and superlative. Next, let's look at some other expression that can show comparison. We can also use as plus adjective plus as to express comparison other than using comparative and superlative. So let's see the explanation in more detail in the next slides. So we use as plus adjective plus as to compare things that are similar or equal in some way. We know that the form is as plus adjective plus as. For example, Terengganu is as beautiful as Melaka. This sentence has the meaning that both Terengganu and Melaka are equally beautiful. However, in negative form, not plus, as plus, adjective plus as, it carry an opposite meaning. For example, running is not as fast as biking, which means that running is that biking is faster than running. So let's see how we can use comparative and superlative in a paragraph. The beach is one of the most beautiful places to visit in the summer. Here we use the superlative for beautiful, the most beautiful. It is usually warmer and sunnier than the forest, which makes it perfect for swimming. Warmer and sunnier is comparative. How do we know that it is comparative? Because we are comparing between two things, which are beach and forest. However, some people think that the forest is better because it is quieter and cooler. What are the comparative here? Quieter and cooler. The mountains in the forest can be more exciting for hiking, but they are not as relaxing as the lake. For me, the lake is the best place because it is calmer and the water is cleaner. That's all for today. I hope you guys understand the lesson for comparative and superlative, where we covered the function of comparative and superlative as well as the rules on how to form comparative and superlative for one syllable adjective, two syllable adjective, and three and more syllable adjective. We also have covered about how to form questions using comparative and superlative, as well as other expression like as, adjective, as. That's all for today.